It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. So what is up, everybody? Welcome to the HVACR videos live stream. Hopefully all is well. How's the audio to everybody out there? Let me know in the chat if everything's okay and if the video is okay. Not that I can really do much about it because I'm streaming, but it is what it is. So my name is Chris. I'm your host. This is the HVACR videos YouTube channel. If you don't know what it is, cool. You found a new thing. So I make HVACR videos from me out in the field currently right now, service call related videos, right? And I say currently because stay tuned. Some new changes might be coming, but service calls won't be going away. Just some new stuff might be coming. I've got some things in the works. So let's see how it goes. All right, cool. Sounds great. That's awesome. So we're streaming on a couple different platforms. We're streaming on 2 different YouTube platforms. We have a vertical and a horizontal. We have Instagram, we have LinkedIn, we have X or Twitter, and Facebook, a couple different places in Facebook too. If you guys have questions, do me a favor, put the questions in all capital letters. It helps me to see them. If I miss your question, and it's really something you want me to answer, feel free to shoot me an email over to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, and I'll try to get to it there too. Got a couple moderators in the YouTube chat. They're not in the other chats, but they're in the YouTube chats. And, they will oftentimes, or the other people that are in the chat will be answering the same questions. It doesn't benefit me either place that you guys choose to watch this live stream, right? But I will say that on YouTube, there's usually a pretty large group of people. I think there's 70 something people in YouTube right now. And there's quite a few of them that are in the chat, and they're always in there having a conversation. That's the cool thing about these live streams is, the chat is its own thing, and it doesn't offend me one bit. There's usually like breakaway conversations going on in the chat, people helping each other out. Oftentimes people will ask me questions that I don't do heavy commercial. I don't work on chillers, or I don't work on big equipment. We got people in the chat that do, so they're willing to answer. And, that's the cool thing about social media, is that for the most part, like, I don't get offended from other social media creators. Someone else has a platform. They might have a different answer to a question that I may not be able to answer, maybe. So, it's really cool that we have this community of people. And for the most part, all the creators, a good majority of the creators, they actually get along and we all communicate with each other. Now, there's a few of them that kind of do their own thing, but, so I have a question from Instagram right now from Ryan Grant saying, would I recommend scaling an HVACR business? We're a pretty small company and doing really great, just as we are wondering, just kind of curious about my input. Well, I'm probably not the best person to ask that kind of advice to, because I suffer from severe anxiety and I get overloaded. There's definitely some neurodivergent things going on in my head. And I struggle with delegating and multitasking. So I'm not the right person to ask about scaling a business, because I tend to keep mine on the smaller side so that way I can manage it and control it and keep it operating the way that I want to. Now, I know that goes against a lot of the gurus out there that, advertise and want to sell you programs. Be very cautious about who you pay on the internet and or who you listen to from the internet, because we're all just random people giving our opinions, right? We may not be giving you the right opinion. Just because I spout some information on the internet, don't trust it as the gospel. Do your own research too. But be very cautious about people that are giving you advice on how to grow your business and stuff like that, especially the ones that want to charge you an arm and a leg. I'm not saying there's not good people out there. There is, but there's a lot of people that are out there that are scamming you, telling you that they're going to teach you how to, grow your business and 10x it and all this stuff. Of course, I want to grow my business. Of course, I want it to be bigger, but I want it to be in a controlled way. I want my business to grow organically, and I want to be able to get to my customers. I also will acknowledge that commercial and residential are completely different. Residential, you're not getting the repeat business that I get on a commercial side, right? I've got a customer that we've been working with for over 25 years, right? The same customer. And, we service a lot of their restaurants and, but we get repeat business from them, right? We're going back all the time. On the residential side, you're not getting that kind of repeat business. Yeah, you might have, 2-3 breakdowns a year. Well, I'm at some of my locations multiple times a month because they're high volume restaurants and just the equipment's breaking all the time, right? So commercial, residential is totally different. Is it a good idea to grow your business? Well, I mean, I'm sure if you're set up for it and you're ready for it. Again, I'm not the best person to give business advice. Let's just say that. So, do I install Goodman? I don't really work on any Goodman equipment. I do more commercial stuff. Don't really do much Daikin stuff. My preferential brands, and I'll discuss that. Actually, that's a really good question. My preferential brands for commercial equipment for me and the type of light commercial refrigeration and air conditioning that I do, let's just say for a package unit, is going to be Carrier, Lennox. Those are my two main brands that I use all the time. Now, I realize there's probably people in the comments that are screaming at me because they don't like those brands. To each their own, right? When people ask me, what's my favorite brand of air conditioner? I always say, and it depends on who it's coming from. When it's coming from a homeowner or a business owner and they say, what's the best brand of air conditioner? I get these emails all the time. My response is usually like this. The best brand is whatever your contractor that's going to be servicing it is recommending, because usually a contractor is only going to recommend a brand that they're confident working on. I'm not super confident working on Train equipment or Aeon equipment. It doesn't mean that Train and Aeon is bad. Everybody has good and bad equipment. It just means that I'm super familiar working on Lennox and Carrier because I work on those all the time. It used to be that I would recommend all day long a Hoshizaki ice machine. They were bulletproof. You could weld the cover shut and they'd work for, 6 months to a year without breaking down. But I don't work on a lot of Hoshizakis anymore. I work on a lot of Manitowoc ice machines. So I've become super familiar with them. Yes, they all have failures. Yes, everything breaks. Every piece of equipment out there is going to break. It's the support that the manufacturer gives you, the availability of parts, and the confidence of the technician that's working on the equipment that really makes that brand stand out. It's interesting enough because I feel like The contractor is really the representative for the manufacturer. And I feel like the manufacturers don't appreciate the contractors enough, right? The manufacturers oftentimes will be like, yeah, we have our warranty people, but it's not always the warranty person that's working on their equipment, you know? And I feel like all manufacturers need to support the contractors better, give the contractors the information they need. Stop putting training materials behind a paywall. That is the dumbest thing that brands can do. Train, I'm talking to you. Okay. You know, every brand has issues, but like it frustrates me sometimes when it's so difficult to get information. Now, I'm fortunate enough that I have some good friends, and I mentioned Train. Part of me was being sarcastic there. Part of me wasn't. I'm fortunate enough that I have connections and friends in high places, and I can get a lot of information that some people may or may not be able to get as easily as I can, right? For Train equipment or whatever brand, you know, and I try to share that information as much as I can, the stuff that I'm allowed to share, you know, with people. But, you know, not everybody has access to the information, and it's not as easy to get, you know, technical manuals. And, you know, there's an argument to be made about the right to repair movement. And it's, you know, it's a heated argument, but it's an argument to be made, to say the least. So anyways, everybody that's popping in here, welcome to the HVACR videos live stream. I know that these live streams, you know, it used to be that you could count on me every Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, I was going live. Obviously, I had to put my sanity first, right? Because I'm running a normal refrigeration and air conditioning business. I'm out there working every day. Not only am I a co-owner of a refrigeration and air conditioning business, but I literally am out there working majority of the time, more hours than every one of my employees in the field, behind the wheel of a truck, driving around fixing things daily. Okay. Then dealing with office stuff and all that. And then I do the live streams, and then I do the videos, and it's like my brain is just exploding. So obviously in the last year and a half, 2 years, I've kind of taken a backseat to the live streams, only doing them when I have time. So that's why, if you wonder why you don't see them as often, it's because I had to like pick something, you know. My sanity was the number one thing. And then obviously the refrigeration and air conditioning business, and then the videos, and then the live streams are kind of at the bottom of the totem pole there. But I try to do these when I can. As usual, when I do these streams, I have a couple things I want to talk about. Again, for the people that are just coming in, if you have questions or things you want me to cover, throw your comments or your questions in capital letters, and I'll try to get to them. And like I mentioned a few minutes ago, if I miss your question or comment, send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. So, okay, so great one. When you cannot find a leak on a lowboy prep table cooler, is dye and sealant okay? So take this for what it is. Absolutely no sealant, period. Don't use it. Trust me, don't use it, okay? Especially on prep tables. I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but you should be able to find a leak on a prep table. Worst case scenario, you remove the refrigerant, you pressurize the system to the recommended pressure level. And if you can't find it at the recommended pressure level, start increasing the pressure by 10 PSI, 20 PSI increments slowly. And trust me, you will find the leak, okay? If it's a very, very small leak, you will make it bigger. You will find it. Keep trying, okay? But most of the time, you get a good high quality leak detector, you're going to be able to find it. The sealants, in my personal opinion, now to each their own. Some people like to use the sealants. I don't. I've never seen good results from them. I've had customers demand, 2 to 3 times I've used them because customers demanded it. And not one of those 2 or 3 times did I see a benefit from any sealants. Plus, what happens to that sealant? Like, and I'm asking everybody in the chat right now, genuinely, and I'm not trying to be a jerk. What happens to that sealant in the system? What does it do? You got to understand something. In a refrigeration system, there is some serious temperatures and serious chemical processes processes or whatever you want to say going on inside that system, right? You've got high temperature, high pressure refrigerant, right? Mixed with oil that, you know, and then you have a refrigerant leak, and then you add a sealant. What is going to happen in that system? You know, where's that sealant going to go? It doesn't just magically disappear. And here's the thing, when it comes to the dye manufacturers, the additives, you know, the ones that clean up the system, all these different things, all the manufacturers, they have some really misleading marketing materials. Okay. Like for instance, in some of the sealants that you can buy over the counter at the supply house, right? It might say manufacturer approved. Which manufacturer? That's what I'd like to know. Which manufacturer is approving that? Wow. Thank you very much for that super chat at 294103. That was very much appreciated. That is a very awesome super chat over on YouTube. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. So which manufacturer approved it? When that die manufacturer puts that on the box that says OEM approved, which original equipment manufacturer approved it? And in what situations? Did you know that if you want to get an additive approved to be used in a Copeland compressor, and you successfully get that approval, it's typically only in a certain application, okay? And Copeland, you know, one of the best manufacturers of light commercial refrigeration compressors, in my opinion, Copeland makes the additive manufacturer pay for the costs up front to do all the testing on that. So it's tens of thousands, 20s, even sometimes I'd imagine into the $30,000 range to get full approval for these additives. But it's only within certain applications. So oftentimes these manufacturers, this is my personal opinion, I'm not naming one specifically, but they kind of all do the same thing. They will get approval, but it's only approval for high temperature application or low pressure chiller application or whatever, but yet they'll put OEM approved or manufacturer approved, and they'll put the name of the manufacturer. While they're not lying, they're not being truthful in the fact that it's not approved across the board. Okay. And then you get other social media creators that, hey, it's good for people, but you notice I don't push any of the BS snake oil crap on my channel because I'm not willing to get paid to push something that I just honestly don't believe in. There's a lot of other creators out there that'll do that, and I guess that's cool if they want to do that. And they get really defensive. There's some of them that'll get in the comments and they'll start arguing with people. My gosh, guys, these super chats. Joe, thank you very much. You didn't need to do that. Freon Leon, thank you very much. You guys are really awesome with these super chats. This is really, really humbling. Thank you very much. It is much appreciated. But there's a lot of creators out there that get their feelings hurt and want to get confrontational when people question a dye or an additive or whatever. Hey, if you want to use it, go for it. But if you put stuff on social media and you're not willing to take criticism, then honestly, you need to stop posting your stuff on social media, because everybody's entitled to their opinion. And you don't have to get offended when someone criticizes you. People criticize me and I'm okay with it. I'm 100% open to criticism. I'm not trying to say I'm better than anybody. I'm just saying, if you're a social media creator out there and you're putting stuff out on there and you're saying that this product is awesome and people are questioning you, don't get offended by it. You know, maybe someone doesn't trust that chemical or that additive. You know, it is what it is. I try not to let that stuff bother me too much. This person says they once saw a company add an oil additive to a YK, turned the oil to tar and destroyed the compressor, needed to be rebuilt. Not a fan of dyes or additives, etc. Now, again, to each their own. Some people like to use the dyes and the additives. Like I said, I've used the leak sealant additives like 2 or 3 times, and it was because the customer demanded it. I made them sign off that I was going to use it. I have used dye, and in all honesty, the dyes, they just make a giant dumpster fire of a mess. And it's like the gift that keeps on giving, because even if you change a compressor on a system that you put dye in, that dye still makes its way back into the new compressor, and it just never stops. It's a mess. It's a nightmare. But hey, sometimes, you know, that's what the customer wants, and it is what it is, right? But my question is what happens to that additive, right? The manufacturer says like, oh, it's harmful. It doesn't react to air. It doesn't do this. Well, then what does it do? In my opinion, now this is my opinion, again, to each their own. The only thing that's really supposed to be in the system is nitrogen for a pressure test. Then you evacuate the system completely. You might put the proper oil in the system and some refrigerant in the system. Okay. Now, I realize that a couple years back, Copeland had some real issues with an additive that they added in the manufacturing process to their compressors. And when that happened, it created a catastrophe in the industry. And they did recommend using an additive that was going to clean up the system. But it doesn't mean that that additive is approved for life. Okay. That was a last ditch effort because they were trying to save face. They were trying to solve a problem, and they approved an additive. I strongly wouldn't suggest using any of those additives because, again, it's a chemical that is not in the system that doesn't go away, right? does something, it goes somewhere in the system. And what happens when there's a chemical reaction? And then you add in A2L refrigerants or hydrocarbon refrigerants. What happens then? Are they approved with hydrocarbons? Are they approved with A2Ls? Does it do anything to the chemical composition of that A2L refrigerant? Who knows? I don't know. I'm not willing to find out, and I'm not willing to take the liability. So that's my 2 cents on the dyes and the additives. But again, if you use them and they work for you, cool story, man. Good for you, right? Just not my jam. All right, let's see what else. That was back in 2014, says Jason. Yeah, that was a long time ago, huh? All right. Oh, yeah, and that's a great question. So Ben there on Instagram saying that it depends on a lot of factors, microchannel or tube and fin. Yeah, I would highly suggest that you don't use any, and I say any, sealants in a microchannel condenser. Oh my goodness gracious. Have you ever seen how small the orifice is, the opening is on a microchannel when you see a cross-sectional of a microchannel when it's cut open? We're talking tiny diameters. So yeah, you don't need that. It's bad enough that you have customers that don't do routine maintenance, and then the oil starts to turn to sludge and it's trying to make its way through a microchannel, and you get restrictions because of that. But then you add additives and other weird things. That's just, hey, I'm not tempting fate on that one. That's just not my thing. Okay, so a couple more things. All right, cool. Going to read through the chat, see if I'm missing anything again. Cool, right on. All right, I'm going to go to a couple things I have on my list. So, I get questions all the time. And, I kind of talked about air conditioning manufacturers. So I'm going to bring up exhaust fan manufacturers. It's kind of funny how this works out, but like my videos, they seem to go in waves. All of a sudden, I'll get a lot of exhaust fan service calls. And then all of a sudden, I'll get a lot of ice machines and air conditioners and refrigerators. It just like goes all over the place, right? But lately, I've been doing a lot of exhaust fan work, right? So people ask me, and even exhaust fan manufacturers, and those of you that are watching that are a manufacturer of an exhaust fan, just because I don't use your brand doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad brand. Okay. So I get people reaching out to me because they do watch my videos, right? And they're sending me emails. Hey, what if you, I'd really like an opportunity to quote this job with, our name brand of exhaust fan, whatever it is, right? And I like other brands. Everybody makes a decent product, but there's little things about each brand that I like or dislike. And one thing I'm going to tell you right now, and a common question I get is, how come I don't use direct drive motors in my exhaust fans? By preference, I prefer not to use direct drive, and I prefer to use a belt drive. Is it because I'm trying to rip the customer off? It's the absolute opposite of that. Is it because I make better profits off of belt driven fans? Nope. The simple answer is direct drive motors. Keith, thank you very much for that super chat. Direct drive motors are more difficult to get when an exhaust fan goes down on a Friday night than a belt-driven motor. Belt-driven motors are stocked at almost all of my refrigeration and HVAC supply houses. Direct drive exhaust fans, the motors for those oftentimes are OEM specific and or very difficult to get. And when you're trying to open up a United refrigeration or an Allied refrigeration or an RSD, at 9 o'clock at night on a Friday afternoon, the odds are they're going to have a belt driven motor that I can make work versus a direct drive motor that has a weird shaft size or has a C-face frame on it. And that's the simple fact. So a good majority of the manufacturers, now I realize there's going to be, for instance, right now, just my preferential brand of exhaust fan, I'm going to throw a name out there, is Greenheck right now. Greenheck also makes direct drive motors, but I don't buy their direct drive fans. But I will say, I bet you anything, eventually Greenheck, like everybody else, will probably stop making belt-driven fans pretty soon. And the reason why I think that a lot of these manufacturers are going to direct drive is because it's easier to sell their motors. You got to remember something that, if you buy a Greenheck fan that has a direct drive motor in it, and it's one of their variable speed motors that has a, little rheostat or pointometer or whatever you use to adjust it, a lot of the times, a very green motor or whatever, those are OEM specific, and you have to order them from Greenheck. You can find them elsewhere, but it's really difficult. Same thing with Captive Air. You typically have to order their direct drive motors from them. Same thing with Cook. You know, you can find a C-face frame for a Cook direct drive motor, but it's a lot easier to find them from the manufacturer. So manufacturers, in my opinion, are wanting to get more revenue from OEM parts. And the way that they do that is by getting rid of universal parts, such as belt-driven motors, right? That's a personal opinion of mine. There's no fact behind that. I haven't read that. I haven't heard that from anybody. That's just my own opinion. So eventually, I think they're all going to go to kind of OEM-specific motors that are a little bit more difficult to get. But for now, Greenheck seems to be my exhaust fan of choice because I like their belt-driven fans. But there's things that I like about other manufacturers too. There's things that I don't like about Greenheck, right? The way that you have to adjust their motors is ridiculous because they put a C-frame channel on the bottom that there's a bolt going into there, and it's so difficult to get a ratchet wrench on there. I don't carry sockets in my van, so, you know, having to get to those bolts to be able to loosen the motors and tension the belts and stuff on a Greenheck fan is a little difficult. So every manufacturer has flaws. They really do. But, you know, I think they're all going to eventually go to the way, just like every car manufacturer, everybody wants to figure out a way to make more money, right? Just like with every car. Have you noticed that everything is subscription based? I have a Subaru Outback and we love it to death. If you want remote start in the Subaru Outback, it was free for the first 3 years and it just expired. And I'm not willing to pay for it again because it's an app that you have to, or I mean, it's a subscription service, and the remote start isn't that great to me, right? Everybody's doing that kind of stuff. They all want to get subscription fees or, you know, OEM part, you know, sales and all that good stuff. So they're all just kind of pushing that kind of stuff. All right, see what else we got going on in the chat. Reading through here real quick. I'm trying to bounce between all the different, you know, software platforms right now that I'm streaming on. So I'm looking. If I'm missing your question again, feel free to shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. All right. Okay, so does an HVAC tech have to be able to work on refrigeration to go into commercial, or can you just stay in HVAC? Oh, 100%. You can stay in HVAC if you go commercial only. Yeah, you can. It just depends on what kind of work you want to do. You don't necessarily have to understand or to work on refrigeration equipment. You are going to tend to be working on air conditioning if you go, or chillers and stuff like that. But you don't necessarily have to work on medium temp or low temp refrigeration. No, your best bet's going to be to go to some of the bigger union outfits if you want to stay commercial, or to go to OEM outfits, manufacturers brands to stay commercial. You know, you go to some of the other companies. I mean, there's non-union companies too that do strictly commercial HVAC. But anyways, that's a whole thing. All right, let's see what else. No more Radio Shacks. You get OEM parts on a Friday night. Yep. No, that's exactly it. So what's a good Allen key for those tight fan blades? You know, as far as the brand goes, I like the metal Allen keys. Klein makes one. And then Elkind, there's a couple off brands that make them. They're little tiny metal that fold up. They're universal. And they're really narrow. That's my choice for Allen key. I don't like individual Allen keys. I do have the T-handled long shank Allens too for certain things, but for fan blades, I like the little Elkind or Klein ones that you can get at the supply house. They work really well for me, and I just keep one of those smaller ones in my bag that has the multi pieces on it, and I get into most fan blades with those. So that's my personal preference. All right, let's see what else we got going on inside here. Is it possible to start your own company as a one-man service shop for residential and light commercial with only 3 years experience? You know, that's a hard one. Starting your own company in this day and age is going to be really difficult. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that you need a lot of experience. And if you want to go into light commercial is what I do. Restaurant refrigeration, that kind of stuff, K stores, small commercial buildings, that kind of stuff, you really need to have a lot of knowledge. I would highly encourage you to take some business classes. Just because you've been doing this for 3 years and you think you know the HVAC side, you really need to learn the business side. I personally don't know enough about business, and I feel like I'm winging it half the time too. But you really, really need to work on your business skills, learn that side of it, get a little bit more, in my personal opinion. And I'm not saying you can't do it, because there's some people out there that can start a business from, you know, day one of going to HVAC school and they seem to do fine. But for me, I'm the type of person that likes to be over prepared, so that way I can over deliver. Okay. Oh, okay. So when you have really hot tea, and you drink it and it burns your mouth, don't just swallow it like I did, but I didn't want to spit it all over my audio software. These Yeti cups work really well. That was really hot and that hurt going down. That was a bit much. All right. What's my opinion on Home Depot selling HVAC parts, capacitors, hard start kits, and leak seals? You know, I mean, on one aspect, I'm like, dang it. But on another aspect, it's going to be really nice. I don't have to open up a refrigeration supply house in the middle of the night. If I need a capacitor, I can run over to Home Depot. You know what? Here's the thing. If my customers want to install their own parts, go for it. I don't care. They're not going to hand me parts and say, install this. That's just not in my business model. It may be in other people's business models, but I'd highly encourage you, if you're in the light commercial side, don't let customers supply their own parts. Now, and again, everybody runs their business differently. Maybe you charge enough or whatever, but I charge time and materials. I make an equal profit off of my labor and my materials. And I need to be able to sell both of those to be able to sustain the way that we do business. I'm not priced in a way that I can install customers' parts. I am priced in a way that I will install customers' equipment, but only for certain customers. I work for large commercial restaurant chains that's just how it goes, right? But I do okay because, you know, you still get the service work, you get the maintenance work, you get to sell the miscellaneous stuff. And so it kind of equals out for us. But for us, our business model does not include installing parts, okay? But as far as buying stuff from Home Depot, I mean, you know, the argument can be made that 30 years ago, plumbers were pissed off that they were selling plumbing fittings at Home Depot. But yet plumbers are still in business today. And you could buy almost any plumbing fitting that you need from Home Depot, and you have been for the last 30 plus years, right? So there's always going to be waves. There's always going to be ripples. There's always going to be growing pains. But just because Home Depot's selling equipment or selling parts, I mean, let's be honest. If a customer's willing to try to install a capacitor on their own, so be it. But, you know, I mean, there's a very good possibility they're going to get hurt, right? Because even my dumbass gets hurt trying to change a capacitor sometimes when I cut corners and don't discharge the capacitor, you know, or I reach my hand in a cabinet that's live and you get the crap shocked out of you, you know. Imagine that happens to a homeowner. That's not a good thing. So, you know, whatever. I don't know. It's just one of those things, you know, same thing. Auto mechanics hated when auto parts stores opened up, but, you know, auto mechanics hated when oil change places opened up. But, you know, a lot of that stuff works its way out, right? You know, occasionally, you know, we'll pick an oil change place and we take our vans over and we have them like every second or third oil change that we get, we'll take it to the oil change place, right? But a good majority of the time, it seems like the oil change places mess up. They don't tighten the oil plugs. They don't tighten the oil filter right. They rip the gaskets on the oil filter. They fill the oil levels. And it's like, and then we end up taking it to the auto mechanic and the auto mechanic fixes it right, right? So it all works its way out or works itself out, you know, and there's always going to be growing pains. You know, it is what it is. You're not going to stop the big box stores from selling things. So it is what it is. That's just the way I see it. All right. Reading through here. Oh, that's really cool. So Luis, I think I said your name right on Instagram. You said you love the content. You've been watching ever since you were an apprentice back in the COVID days. Well, that's really cool. Thank you very much. And again, if I'm missing your comments or questions, feel free to shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. So I'm going to tell you guys something. I got this really, really nice email from an HVAC instructor at a college in Canada, right? That doesn't use my videos as class, but uses my videos as an example of a commercial service call, because in school you can only teach so many things. And so they use my videos occasionally, show them to the students like, okay, so now that we've worked on this, we've talked about this, we're going to show all this being performed in a service call, right? So they use my videos and whatever. They sent me this really nice email and it was really, really nice. Thank you very much. But the point that I'm making is that made my day. Getting that email. It really did. It made my day. And I get emails like that from time to time from people or comments or whatever. And it does make my day to read encouragement and people saying thank you and stuff. I encourage all of you out there, if you watch a content creator, it doesn't matter if it's Roman Atwood on YouTube, if it's, you know, well, I was going to say Matt Carricker from Demo Ranch, but if you know, you know. That sucks. That one hurt. Matt closed down his channel. And, you know, it's just one of those things. It's really a bummer for me. Look at, I actually have one of Matt's stickers right here. I was actually looking for it on my thing. Demo Ranch right here. But the point that I'm trying to make is if you have a creator, if it's an HVAC creator, a vlogger, whatever, send them an email. Tell them thank you, because that made my day reading that person's email. And I could only imagine that if all of you guys, I'm not talking about me, if you watch another one, send them an email, send them something, tell them how your videos have helped them, because there's times that I needed that today. I read that and it was like, man, that's a really nice comment. Okay. So I encourage all of you out there, just send an email. It doesn't take much. It doesn't have to be freaking a book. You know, it could be whatever you want, but just send an email. You'd be surprised how much it will give someone motivation or encouragement. The email that the gentleman sent me, forgive me. See, I probably have it right here. The gentleman's name was, where is it? It's not right there. It's going to be right here. The gentleman's name was Eric. Eric, that was a really nice email that you sent me, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay. So again, I don't know if I missed a super chat. I saw a bunch come through. Thank you very much for everybody that's doing those super chats. That is really awesome. Okay. I'm reading through here right now. Let me see what I'm missing. I'm reading through the YouTube chat and everything else. AK Storm, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate. Hopefully we get to meet up in Vegas. I'm sure we will. So AHR is coming up here in end of January, beginning of February, somewhere in there. And I planned on being in AHR. It's going to be in Vegas. We're probably going to do nothing crazy, but some kind of a meetup. I talked about what we're possibly considering. If everything works out, we're possibly going to be, I'm going to be going out to AHR probably Friday night before AHR. And I'll probably be out there the weekend before. Saturday morning, I think I'm going to get up and we're going to go up to Red Rock Canyon and do a hike probably Saturday morning. And then Sunday, we have all kinds of festivities. I don't know what I'm going to be able to go to, but there's tons of stuff going on. Got the HVAC Tactical Awards Sunday night. I may or may not be able to make it to that because there's some other stuff going on that I might have an obligation to go to. I'm still trying to work out all the kinks. But if we are in Vegas, we probably are going to try to do some sort of a meetup Monday, Tuesday-ish at a brewery or something like that. Maybe it's a possibility. So stay tuned. I'll be announcing stuff on social media. It'll just totally like a real low-key, chill hangout, have a couple beers or something like that at a cool brewery. You know, we had a good time doing that. Couple months back, we did something where we met up with a few people and it was really awesome. So stay tuned. We'll be announcing that stuff. Oh, so I'm not going to give away everything yet, but I kind of said something at the beginning of this live stream. I still want to be able to do service call videos, and that is still the plan, but there's going to be potentially some new interesting stuff coming to the channel. If you follow my social media, you may be able to kind of put things together. But I've kind of mentioned a few things, asked some questions about a few things. I'm in the process right now of doing some research on a really cool project right outside this window right here. I have a contractor coming tomorrow to give me a quote. And again, it just depends on how expensive everything is because my budget isn't that much, but to give me a quote on a bunch of concrete work, that's possibly going to add a lot of value and a lot of content that could be really cool to this channel. So stay tuned. Let's hope that everything works out. And I've even got some manufacturers on board that want to be part of this project. If everything works out, again, there's a lot of ifs, right? But if it does, this could be really cool and give me the ability to be able to do some stuff that I can't necessarily do on customers' equipment. And what I mean by is intentionally break equipment, but in pretty epic ways, and show all kinds of cool experiments and different ways of explaining things. So let's hope that it works out because there's a lot of ifs on this. The big hurdle is tomorrow with the contractor that's going to give me a quote for this concrete work because it's going to be a pretty hefty investment on my part. And we're talking a ridiculous amount of money. But if this works out, I think it could be something really cool. I know I'm being vague. I'm purposely being vague. Some of you kind of might have an understanding of where I'm going with this because if you follow my social media enough, you know, but stay tuned because there could be some really cool stuff coming up and it could really, really change the way that the channel works. Of course, I still plan on doing service call videos, but I will say it's getting harder and harder in these restaurants to do service call videos. It really is. for a lot of varying factors. Okay. So just stay tuned. Got lots of cool stuff coming up. All right. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Well, I don't know about training center. That's a goal for another day because this is my house. So public's not going to be coming to my house, but this is a baby step in that direction, possibly. Okay, possibly. Maybe it could lead to something in the future that is open to the public, but that wouldn't come for any day. Ryan, my good friend Ryan Hughes, thank you very much. I will have a drink. I've got some chamomile lavender tea right here. That's still too damn hot. Jeez, that's ridiculously hot. All right. Anyone use the JB wireless probe set? Honestly, I have it. I tried using it for a while. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I gave it to one of my service techs, my main tech, Will gave them back to me. So, you know, that's where that goes, but who knows? Maybe they'll make a comeback, right? But I do have the JB. I have basically everything JB, and it's okay. Not my favorite though. So I'm getting a pool. America's last great family man. No, I'm not. That's the last thing I'm going to do is get a pool. That is the most impractical thing to put in my house. That would just be a giant money pit. So, and I'm willing to spend a lot of money, not as much as putting in a pool, but a pool is just ridiculously expensive. So, what if you bring beer? I don't know. I don't know what happens if you bring beer to a brewery. I don't know. Or what if you bring beer to my house? Oh, maybe we could do that. Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's go in there. Reading through the chat, seeing what I mean. SoCal HVACR says HVACR to the moon. You know, I'm not like that. I'm not like, I'm very practical. I do things in baby steps, working my way through things. So, all right. Got a couple more things I want to talk about. So, this is something that I'm super busy. I'm stressed out all the time. Got a million things going on. It's really difficult for me to keep up with life. And I had an opportunity. My daughter had her learner's permit, and she was coming up to take her driving test. And we had planned something. My wife and I were just talking, and we were just having a random conversation about a month ago. And we're like, you know what? We need to go on a road trip. We haven't gone on a road trip in a long time. And then it worked out. We started thinking, we're like, well, shoot, a road trip's like the perfect thing for my daughter to get driving experience, right? So we had some plans. Those plans fell through because we realized that the road trip we wanted to take was out of the state of California, and it gets kind of iffy driving with a learner's permit out of the state of California. There's a lot of weird, vague rules. So we just decided to stay in California, and it ended up just being my daughter and I, and we took the most epic road trip. So little backstory. This is not HVAC related, but this is my live stream. So I'm going to talk about what I want. This was awesome for me, right? So when my wife and I were younger, we've been dating since high school. When we were younger, we used to go on road trips all the time. The kind of road trips that everybody wishes they could go on. No plans, no anything, just figure it out, get on the road. You have a general idea where you're going and just stop where you want. My daughter and I, 16 years old, just took that same road trip. We drove up the Eastern Sierras. We took Highway 395 from my area straight up all the way up to basically up to Bishop, California. It was in the middle of a snowstorm. It was raining, crazy weather. My daughter's such a trooper. She did 95% of the driving. I took over only when it started to snow and we were going into a mountain pass, but she drove through fog. She drove through rain. She did all this stuff, but we took the coolest road trip because we didn't have reservations anywhere. We didn't have plans. We had a general idea. We originally were going to go up to Lake Tahoe. It was like where we were going to turn around and come back home, but the road was closed because of a fire, and it was just a crazy detour. The first night we drove up, I told my daughter the night before, I was like, hey, I don't know if we're going to leave Friday night because it's raining, or, we're just going to be in the dark. We don't got anywhere to stay. I really don't want to pay for a hotel room for like 4 hours of sleep. Like, let's not do that. And she's like, let's sleep in the car. And I was like, really? I mean, okay. Used to do that stuff when I was a kid. So Friday night, we drove as far as we could. We slept just outside of a small little town called Lone Pine, just right on the side of the road next to a bunch of diesel trucks. The next morning we woke up, we went exploring all through Lone Pine, going up roads that when you're driving up a highway, when you're going up 395, majority of the people are going up to Mammoth Lakes, right? Or Lake Tahoe. And they have a destination. They only stop to go to the bathroom and get food. We had nowhere to go. So it was just kind of like, hey, that's a weird looking building off the road down that dirt road. Let's drive down that. So you just take off, 2 hour side trek, just boop-de-doo. Hey, let's go up this road. Let's take Whitney Portal Road as far as you can. And, you know, we took that up until it was closed because of snow. And we had such a good time. Such a good time, my daughter and I. We ended up getting a hotel room Saturday night so that way we could actually sleep, because while it was adventurous and fun to sleep in the car, my back, yeah, it felt a little off. I still am kind of like having flashbacks because my back was just like, you know, sleeping in a car is a little rough, but such a good time. But my daughter and I did that road trip. It was probably the best thing we could have done. I needed that so bad. I encourage all of you guys, and I know we all hear it and it's so difficult to actually take action on it, but we need to take that time. I needed to take that time. It was just a 3-day weekend, but it was so cool. She got all the experience she needed. It wasn't just because of that trip, because my wife put in a lot of hours helping my daughter drive, and then she had to go through driving school. But when we got back, actually last week, my daughter took her driver's license test, the behind the wheel thing, and she actually passed. So now she's a licensed driver. But it was such a good time. It was such an awesome experience. It was really cool. It was very surreal and nostalgic for me, because that's the kind of stuff my wife and I used to do. And now we're in our 40s, and it's like, you know, when we go places, it's like, oh, we need a nicer hotel room, and, you know, we need the nicer seats on the airplane. And, you know, and it's like, sometimes it's nice just to step back to your roots and just take a low budget trip with no plans and just figure it out. What a great time. I encourage all of you guys to do that kind of stuff. It was an amazing trip, and I'm so thankful that we actually did it. I'll remember it forever. But yes, you know, someone in the Luke said that she'll remember that forever. Of course, you know, it was great memories. And in all honesty, because the Eastern Sierras and the 395 is like my favorite, all-time favorite drive. It's just beautiful. And I thought that this would satisfy my urge, because it's been a couple years since we've driven up to June Lake or Mammoth or anything like that. But no, this just made me hungry to do it again. Like I told my wife when we came back, I'm like, we need to go again. Like I want to take my wife this time. We need to do that same kind of a trip, super low budget, just having a good time, stopping where you want to stop. I will say that we went to Manzanar, and that was rough. I know what Manzanar was, the Japanese concentration camp, one of the many, right? But man, that was rough going to the Manzanar Visitor Center. Like that was really difficult, going into the recreated barracks where they were sleeping. That one hit me hard, like get you teary-eyed for sure. And yeah, that was rough, but we had a lot of amazing experiences together, and it was awesome. So anyways, I'll stop talking about my personal stuff. But let's get on to this. I got a couple more things. What camera do I use? I get that question almost daily. The easiest camera in the world. Now, I actually don't use this one for filming. This is an iPhone 16. I have a newer iPhone that I use strictly for filming. It's the 17, whatever the newest iPhone Pro Max, whatever is. I try to stay as simple as possible with my phones and my camera gear. I've bought all kinds of crazy camera stuff, GoPros, all that stuff. And I've got a drawer full of GoPros that they're just too complicated to use. They overheat. They don't work half the time. It's frustrating. I use GoPros for like time-lapse stuff every once in a while when we go to the desert to look at stars and stuff like that. That's about it. But for the most part, 99.9% of the time, I'm filming with an iPhone. And it's awesome. Before that, I was using a Samsung phone, phenomenal phones. What do I use for my audio gear? Someone was asking me. The iPhone microphone. Now, occasionally, I will use a DJI Pocket 3, and I have like the Pro version or whatever that came with a single wireless mic. I use that for my outros. So if you ever see me filming the outro back behind my van, I'm using a DJI Pocket 3. Occasionally, I'll set up the DJI Pocket, you know, when I'm doing crane lifts just on the roof. You can put it into follow mode, so it'll actually follow you on the roof. It'll follow a person. So the DJI Pocket's really nice, but for the easiest run and gun stuff that I do, I just film with my iPhone. Easiest way to go. Super simple. No setting things up, no memory cards, none of that stuff. So iPhone or Samsung phone is just the way to go. I mean, they're not new GoPros, Ryan, but shoot me an email if you're interested. I got all kinds of GoPros, but they're not the newest ones, dude. They're probably 13s, or I don't know what the newest GoPro is these days, but I got a bunch of that crap. I got microphones. People, I should probably do that. I should probably do like a HVACR videos like sale, because I have like Rode Pro wireless mics, the little wireless ones with the charging cases. I don't use them. It's just, I got tons of that stuff. I should probably do something like sell that stuff, get a couple bucks for it, because it's stupid how much money I've wasted on a lot of that stuff when all I do is typically just film with this stuff. So You're still using a 7. Yeah, hit me up, Ryan. I'll make you a smoking deal. So, all right, let's see what else. Okay, a couple more things I want to get to. Everybody that's just joining right now, HVACR videos live stream, just talking about a few different things. If you have questions or comments, things you want me to address, put your questions in all capital letters if you can. It'll make it easier. If I miss your question, shoot me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. All right, let's see what else we got going on in here. Okay, there we go. I answered that one. Already answered that one. Oh yeah, I do have to address that the other morning, man, winter has truly hit here in Southern California. I had to record the outro for Sunday's video, and I think it was Sunday morning. I went out there to record the outro really quick. It was like 7 a.m. and I had to put a beanie on and I had to put a sweatshirt on. I was freezing outside, guys. It is full on winter, and be careful because you don't want to get hypothermia out there. It was 47 degrees and I felt like I was going to die. It was cold. You know, I'm being sarcastic. We don't know what cold is here in Southern California. Okay. This is shorts and Ugg boots right now and beanies. That's our weather. Like, this is our cold. Okay. I think the design low at my house is like 37 degrees. Like, and that's for like 2 hours of one day of the year. We truly don't know what cold is in Southern California. Now, you can go to the mountain communities and it can be winter, but here in the Inland Empire, like, we really are fortunate because I know a lot of you out there are dealing with like real snow and real issues. And we're over here thinking we're getting hypothermia because it's 47 degrees. So, yeah, sorry, but I'm being sarcastic. We know what hot is. We definitely do. So we don't know what humidity is though. What's the oddest thing I found on an unrelated call? You had a PM and found a filter door left off since install a year-old train precedent. The VFD didn't seem too happy. It had an FN code. Oh yeah. I mean, there's been all kinds of stuff. I haven't released the video yet, but I filmed like a short the other day. I mean, here's a piece of advice I'm going to give everybody. Make yourself valuable to the customer. And I'm going to be releasing a short, and essentially I'm going to say the same thing. But I just got done with a round of routine maintenances at one of my really good customers, right? And when I was doing like one of the last maintenances, I was up on the roof and there was I just happened to be cleaning condensers and checking heaters. And I happened to notice 2 giant cuts in the roof on the rubber TPO roof. And, you know, when I say make yourself valuable, they had nothing to do with us. It was nowhere near where we work. It was on the outside of the parapet wall. I just happened to notice it because I'm an observant technician. Adding value to the customers, right? Letting the customers know that you're actually caring about them and paying attention to things. I don't need to tell the customer that there's a damaged roof. It has nothing to do with me. And there was no way it could have been proved that I damaged it, but I still made an effort to clean the rubber TPO roof off, took a big yellow paint marker, marked arrows, wrote on the edge of the parapet, leak with an arrow pointing down, took pictures, sent it to the customer, told the facilities director, hey, while I was doing your routine maintenance, I found 2 giant cuts in your brand new rubber TPO roof that's only 8 months old. I just wanted to give you an FYI. You might want to get your roofers out, but to make it easier for your roofer, I took pictures of it. I marked it with yellow paint marker to make your life easy, right? I try to add that kind of value to the work that I'm doing. I'm not trying to say that I'm better than anybody. I'm trying to say, do that yourself. Be that person. When you're up on a roof, we're up there working, and roof drains might be plugged up with palm tree fawns if you live in Southern California, or mud and dirt because it's a rubber TPO roof and the dirt doesn't get ground down into the asphalt roof anymore. So it's got to go somewhere. So when it rains, all that dirt goes to the roof drains. When you have a primary and a secondary roof drain, the primary gets plugged up, it starts overflowing down the secondary, going down onto the sidewalk, right? So if you're up on a roof and you notice that a roof drain's really, really dirty, take some pictures, send it to the facilities director, make yourself that company that adds value to what you're doing. You know, that, in my opinion, I'd like to say that the facilities directors appreciate the fact that I send things that have nothing to do with me, because that damaged roof that I saw, that's a roofer's job, right? It's not my problem, but I'm trying to be observant because my customer's success is my success. That's the way that I see it. I want to keep working for my customer. I have no interest in making a quick buck off my customer. I want to continue to do honest work for my customer and be of value to them. So be that person. When you're on a roof, I tell people all the time, don't put headphones on and just zone out and start cleaning coils, because You should be listening to the equipment. You should be looking around, being observant. Don't put yourself in tunnel vision. Pay attention, look around, listen, look for things. If you know something's not right, bring it up to the customer, even if it has nothing to do with you. In my opinion, that's going to add value and add worth to what you're doing. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. Yeah, exactly. Make it yours and your customer will love you, says Mike, HVAC reefer guy. That's 100% true. And see, Mike, I know you come from old school. I come from old school. And that's how we used to do things. When you had a customer, in your mind, you owned that roof, right? When I go on a roof, that is my roof. I take ownership of it. That doesn't mean that I'm going to fix everything, but that means that I'm going to be observant. That means that when I'm up there, I'm going to look around and I'm going to tell the customer, hey, you potentially have a drain that's backing up on your roof. Nothing to do with me, but I thought maybe you should get someone up there before you have roof damage, right? Nothing worse than a rubber TPO roof that the roof drains are completely backed up and then the roof's got 6 inches of water. Do you know how much weight 6 inches of water across a 20,000 square foot building is with a rubber TPO roof? That's a lot of weight. And that roof's not designed to have that much weight bearing down on the roof. That kind of stuff. Be observant. Don't just be that guy that goes up there, just doing his job. Not my problem. Moving on. Be observant, right? Doesn't mean you have to fix it yourself, but just be observant. Take pictures, send it to the appropriate people, to your boss, to facilities, to whoever you need to. Take ownership of that roof or the equipment or whatever it may be. Be the person. Give honest opinion. What I like to tell my customers, a good majority of the time, especially when you're dealing with the chain restaurants, they buy their own equipment, okay? So I will give them, a repair quote, and the repair quote might be X number of dollars, and I'll just send the email to the customer, hey, it's going to cost this much to fix, but just to FYI, I strongly suggest that you replace this equipment rather than spending this much money with me. Because I feel like if you spend that much money with me, in my opinion, you're wasting your money and you could get much more value out of a new piece of equipment that's going to have warranty that I don't make a penny off of when you buy a new piece of equipment. But I do that all the time. I recommend that customers replace versus repair even when they're buying their own stuff. And then when they don't take my advice and they repair, so be it. I make more money off of repairs, but I try to get them because their success is my success. That's the way that I see it. Equipment is going to break. It's natural. It doesn't matter what brand it is. It's going to break. And I hope that they call me when it breaks, right? But, I try to make myself valuable to them. So I encourage all of you to do the same. All right. Let's see what else we got going on here. Don't know if I answered your question on the Otis thing, but where did I get the crane in the background? That is a Lego Technique crane. My daughter and I built those. Those are all Legos. That's the Adam West Batmobile back there. That's a compressor that's cut open, a scroll compressor. You've got a dial a charging cylinder right there. You've got the Back to the Future DeLorean right there. The Adam West Batmobile. You have a Land Cruiser over here. My favorite, I'm like getting all mixed up on which way to go. There we go. My favorite is the space shuttle on top of the 747, because for those of you from Southern California, they did a victory tour when they retired that space shuttle, and they flew that all over Southern and Central California, all over the place. And I was working in Costa Mesa that day when that thing was being retired, and it flew over, and it was the coolest thing in my life. Now, I'm also of the age that the space shuttle was iconic for me, right? I'm in my 40s. It was the coolest thing ever. Everybody wanted to be an astronaut growing up, and everybody previous to my generation, same thing. So seeing the space shuttle fly on the back of a 747 at low altitude all through Southern California, doing just loops all over the place, was the coolest thing that could have happened. Like, that has to be one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. So yeah, these are all just Legos. I just enjoy doing those. And in all honesty, my daughter does 90% of the work with those. I usually start building them. My daughter takes over, and then I'll help here and there. But those are all just cool things. The Adam West Batman, when I was a kid, I used to watch reruns of the Adam West Batman, the funniest ones, with the silly little puns with him and Robin dressed in their ridiculous clothes. Like, oh, such great TV series. Back to the Future. But that Lego crane, that's a cool thing that my daughter and I built together. Just lots of fun, that stuff. Lots of fun. All right, let's see what else we got going on in the chat. See what I'm missing. Let's see. They have the same setup at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, and you can walk through both of them. Yeah, Jason, I want to do that someday. I've been to the Kennedy Space Center when I was a little kid in Florida, but I would love to go on as an adult for sure. Supposedly, they have a space shuttle, I think, at one of the science centers here, and I think they made it vertical. I don't know if you can still go in it or not. I need to. I haven't been, but it's somewhere in LA. It pays to not listen to music for your own awareness and personal safety. Your ears are the only 360-degree sensors with any range that the human body has. Use them and look after them. That's true. You know, and I will say that people ask me all the time, how come I'm wearing AirPods in my ears? Because I have them in pass-through mode. They actually act as hearing aids. I can hear everything around me, and then I can answer phone calls, because if you were with me for an entire day, you'd be blown away as to how many phone calls I'm taking for tech support, service calls, conversations, all that different stuff throughout the day. Facilities managers, everybody's calling me all the time. I also have the Meta glasses. I actually have them right here. And I will say these are a phenomenal Bluetooth device for when you're working. These are polarized Meta glasses with transition lenses. Actually, they're not polarized. They're transition lenses. So when you go into the UV light, they turn to sunglasses. But they have really cool speakers in them. So you can hear, but it doesn't cover your ear. You can still hear everything around you. And I will use those for phone calls occasionally too. So those are really, really nice. All right, so let's see what else we got going on. Never enough money to do it right the first time, but there's always enough money to do it right the second time when it doesn't work out. That's the truth for sure. All right. Okay, reading through, see what else I'm missing in here. Another question that I get, and I said that I would talk about it. What books do I recommend for HVACR service technicians? Okay, so for people that already understand air conditioning and want to get into refrigeration, I'm going to recommend one book that is a phenomenal book. And I have a shameful plug with the book too, but that is Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians by Dick Wurz. Amazing book for technicians that have a basic understanding of air conditioning and want to get into refrigeration. It teaches controls, refrigeration fundamentals. It has rules of thumb. It is an amazing, amazing book. I'm very, very thankful and honored that there's a little section in the beginning of the book when just really tiny, nothing really crazy, but Dick Wurz mentions me in it. And it's really, really nice that he did that. Just gave me a little section talking about content creation and how it's a new form of learning and that kind of stuff. It was really, really nice of Dick to mention me in that. But Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians, this is the 4th edition. This is the newest one. I've heard rumors that there might be another one, but I don't know when and if it's going to come out. But this is an amazing book. Another one for people that want to get into air conditioning and refrigeration, beginners. Of course, you have, you know, the Racked Manual. Those are really big, thick books, great ones. But a great one that I'll recommend is from my buddy Craig Migliaccio from AC Service Tech, Refrigeration Charging and Service Procedures for Air Conditioning Technicians. This is really, really basic. It goes through basic fundamentals, has big text. It's just a great book. Craig does such a good job of trying to break down some of the basic processes. Highly suggest you can get it at acservicetech.com. I'm sure. Just look up HVA or AC Service Tech on YouTube. You go to the show notes, you can find all of his information. Craig does such an amazing job. Both of those books are phenomenal books. I highly suggest them to anybody out there that wants to get into it. Why is it? Someone had asked me earlier, why don't I make longer videos? Because I don't script my videos. I don't plan my videos. It just depends what the service call leads to. Sometimes I can do an hour-long video. Sometimes it's a 20-minute video. Who knows? Okay. So it really just depends on what I happen to film. I don't script anything. Now, I will say that I teased a little bit earlier about some new projects coming. If this new project works out the way that I want it to, I'm working on a new idea for the channel. It's not going to change the service call videos. They'll potentially still be there, but there might be some new type of content. And if that works out, I'll be able to do more content specifically talking about a subject that I plan about talking about while doing experiments and showing the experiments and being able to work on potentially some of my own equipment that I can break and I can damage and I can do all kinds of cool stuff and film and do experiments and time lapse and all kinds of stuff. So stay tuned. I mentioned earlier, again, I'm not going to reveal everything yet, but I've got a contractor coming tomorrow to give me a quote on a huge amount of concrete work. So that way this project can potentially lead to something cool in the future. So let's hope. All right. I really appreciate you. I am going to wrap this up. Last question that I see on here. What is my thoughts on CO2 refrigeration, CO2 racks? It's definitely one of the new refrigerants of the future, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's here to stay. So if you want to get into the heavy commercial, supermarket, heavy industrial stuff, CO2 is definitely something you need to consider. Eventually, it will make its way into light commercial refrigeration. We're not quite ready for it yet, but it will start to make its way because the hippies, they're going to get rid of every refrigerant out there, right? If the hippies had their way, we wouldn't have any food preservation. We wouldn't have any comfort cooling. We would literally just be sitting and only living in very small areas of the United States and the world. And the hippies are pretty strong in the way that they do things. So trust me, they have a bigger influence than you think. And so, you know, all these bad refrigerants are being pushed out. More clean, environmentally friendly, complicated refrigerants are coming to replace them because they're better. I could talk about it. I could talk for hours about that. But again, we'll leave it at that. Keith Peterson, thank you very much for that super chat. I appreciate you all. I'm going to go ahead and cue up the outro music. I'm going to try to bring in the pups here in a few minutes if I can figure this out today. Do I have a cousin in Nevada? Not that I... Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have a couple cousins in Nevada. Abraham, do you know a cousin of mine that works in refrigeration in Nevada? I have a couple cousins in Nevada, but one works in refrigeration. I'll wait, see if you answer. I have a cousin named Josh that works in refrigeration in Nevada. Is that who you're talking about? I have some other ones too. Let's see. I'll wait. Yeah. My cousin is Josh. Yep. Josh worked with me for a brief amount of time. Cool dude. I heard he was working for Walmart. I don't know if that's who he's still working for, but yeah. Yep, that's Josh. Yep, worked with me for a very small amount of time for about a year. He worked for me, but he worked in refrigeration long before me, and then moved to Nevada, works at Walmart. Yeah, in-house. Yep, definitely. That's my cousin Josh. That is right. Yeah, cool dude. All right, well, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so very much. I'm going to cue up the outro music. And actually, I'm going to do, I think I figured this out. So if I go media assets and I do outro, I think this will pop up and I'll bring in the pups here in just a minute.